Welcome to the Top of the Tower Seattle podcast. I'm Mark Wright. This is the official podcast of the Columbia Tower Club. It's great to have you all back. On the show this week, we have executive chef Thomas Cullen. Chef, it's great to have you here.
Yeah, good to be here.
I've heard
Thanks for inviting me.
I've heard a lot about you from a lot of different people.
I hope none of it's true.
You're a colorful guy. You're so passionate about food. So over the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to get to know you, get to know your passion for cooking, and also what your commitment is here at the Columbia Tower Club. So I guess the first thing that I'd like to know, Chef, is what defines the food experience for people here at the Columbia Tower Club? What do you hope that the food experience is?
I hope to really just rival the view. The view is so amazing of the sound, and then you also have Lake Washington on the other side and of all the water. And so my focus is primarily Pacific Northwestern seafood. So you see the sound and you look at the menu and you see all of the things that the Pacific Northwest offers in terms of seafood, like oysters and Dungeness crab and, salmon, of course. We always have salmon. Some, even out of season, I try to get some very sustainably farmed salmon from Australia and New Zealand. One of them is called Ora King, which is my absolute favorite.
I tried that. There's a little meat shop by my house up in Mukilteo.
Yeah.
And the guy said, if you have not tried Ora King,
it's the best. It's just the best.
I cooked it, and I can't even describe it. It's sort of like what Wagyu is to beef.
Yeah, they actually call it the Wagyu of the sea.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's like butter melts in your mouth.
It's amazing.
Oh.
And, we got some really fresh Columbia River Kings the other day, and the color was like papaya. Like, you ever seen a really ripe papaya? Mm-hmm. There's no color like it. It's like a pinkish, purplish. I would say papaya. Like, what color it is? It's papaya. You know what I mean? And the inside of the salmon was like that. It was so beautiful, and it was, just caught, less than 100 miles away. And we get our oysters from a farm down a little bit south of Olympia. I want to say South Olympia. Perkins Family Farms. They farm this oyster that I buy exclusively from them. So I made a deal with them to get just that oyster here, and it's called the Cliff Point Petite, and it's just an amazing oyster. It's kind of like a cross between a Cushy and a Kumamoto. So our oyster is special. I like to do things in season. When halibut's in season, I put halibut on the menu. It's one of my favorite fish. We like the Pacific giant octopus. So when I'm using octopus, I use that. It's, you catch them right here. The boats usually catch them as bycatch. They don't mean to catch them, but we use them because they're local and very delicious octopus. So my menu is really just based on local as much as I can, and the celebration of the water here is really what I'm into.
That's interesting that you say that you're trying to sort of match the visual experience of coming into the Columbia Tower Club. I think people who've never been up here, it really is something that never gets old. This view is just breathtaking. Let's go back in time. I want to know, I've gotten to know a ton of chefs in Seattle over my 25, 30 years here. No, more than that. But food is the language of love, I think, for chefs. And people don't become chefs unless, I think, two things. One, they care about people, and food is their language, their love language. Like, they always want you to have the best cut, the best slice, the best portion. I would love to know, how old were you when you sort of recognized that food was something more than just something to eat?
Honestly, my mother and my Uncle Bob, my grandmother were all cooks. They were all very, very good cooks. My grandmother was a very good cook. Like, the chicken that we serve, the fried chicken that we serve here, we do like a fried chicken bites or popcorn chicken, whatever you want to call it, for happy hour. And once in a while we do, we also do a fried chicken sandwich, the exact same recipe, and it's my grandmother's recipe. We knew, me and my little brother would walking home from school, and we would smell, my mom's sauce cooking. We'd know, we know what we're having tonight. And it would be like 3-4 houses away. And it was like, mom's cooking sauce, And it was for, the kind you make like Sunday gravy or, a ragu or whatever you would call it. But she made this really amazing meat ragu. It's still, I make it for me and my family once a month. It's still my favorite. So once I started to make those things for myself when she wasn't around or she was at work or out of town or something like that, and I would like feed my little brother and he'd say, it's just like mom's. That's when I knew. That's when I knew giving somebody something and they eat it and they say, yum, that's it for me. I love to do that. I like to do that over and over. My girlfriend would say it's because I just want recognition. I want more compliments, but I mean, kind of. I want people to say, dude, that's the best fried chicken I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
I want to hear that every time I feed somebody.
Yeah. Is there a secret ingredient like buttermilk or anything like that?
It's buttermilk, and the secret really is hot sauce, is Louisiana hot sauce.
Oh.
So it's buttermilk, hot sauce, salt and pepper, and that's really it for the marinade. And then the dredge is just very simple salt, pepper, flour. The secret to good, crispy, flaky fried chicken is baking powder. So a little bit of baking powder in your flour mix helps the fat bubble up and get crispy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Is it true that you learned how to cook, or at least you enjoyed cooking in a firehouse when you were younger?
Yeah, it's kind of a long story, but so I was really young when I started working in restaurants. I started working in restaurants at 14 years old. At a place that I rode my bike to called Ono Tokyo. It was in a little mall in Las Vegas, and just a really hole in the wall sushi place. And I started, washing rice and shaving ginger and things like that. And then I bounced in and out of, things. I was, a busboy, I was a server, I've done almost every job there is in the restaurant. But obviously it's not a really great paying job unless it's all tips. In Vegas, people will make tips, make really good money, but it wasn't really great money for me. And then, I got married and had my first baby, and still I was doing drywall, I was doing taping, I was a cable guy. And then I decided to become a firefighter. Good money, good career and all that. And then I started going through the school, and I told my wife how excited I was that one of the guys gets elected to cook for the whole team for the week. And she was like, that's what you're most excited about? And I was like, yeah, I can't wait to make my chili for the guys, or whatever. And she was like, what the hell are you doing? She's like, why don't you just become a chef? And I was like,
because it's a lot less dangerous too.
Truly. And honestly, I love it. Yeah. And so I was driving by with her during this conversation, and I saw a help wanted sign in the window of a Buca di Beppo. And so I pulled in, and I walked in and talked to the chef, and I got a job as a $9 an hour pasta cook right then and there while she was waiting in the car.
Wow.
Yeah.
The help wanted sign. And Buca di Beppo, literally in Italian, means, I think, Joe's basement. I remember interviewing the founder of Buca di Beppo at one point back in my news career. But a very successful Italian chain, kind of home cooking. So that's where it all started, huh?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it really started for me when I started cooking my own family's recipes. But, I enjoyed doing what I was doing at Ono Tokyo. I was just a busboy. But I got a chance to prep and see the knives, and I saw his knife, and I was like, dude, that's a cool knife, Yeah. I just liked it from then and there. My little brother would beg me to cook when my mom was at work. He would beg me. He said, please make something to eat. And I would be like, you clean the kitchen and I'll make what you want to eat. And so he would clean the kitchen, and I'd make dinner. And it, usually like a soup or a stew or something, a kid can put together easily. But I remember that it was really put together well, even when I was like 12 years old. So,
and was that because you had an ability to pay attention to how ingredients tasted together and the balance?
I would taste over and 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 over until my mouth didn't work, and I'd always be like, too much pepper, or is it salty enough, and I still to this day, it racks my brain when I'm seeing young cooks put together food and not tasting their food, And a lot of my chef friends and I always talk about it. It's like, why do we have to tell them to like, why don't you want to taste what you're making right now? I don't get it. For me, I'm like, I want to know what that tastes like. I want one of those. Yeah, I want to eat that.
Yeah.
I remember being in a restaurant at a place called Pinot Brasserie in Las Vegas at the Venetian when it first opened. I got a job as a line cook, pantry cook there. And I saw one of the steaks go out, and the steak had bordelaise sauce on it, and it had little glazed pearl onions and little baby carrots and little, whatever, garnishing the steak. And when I went by, I was like, oh, I want that. I want one of those. And so the chef came to me, it was like my first or second day, and he's like, what do you want to eat? We'll make you whatever you want. And I was like, I want one of those. And he's like, all right. And they made me one. And I got to eat it. And I was like, it's the best steak I've ever had in my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I don't understand how somebody could be doing this job and not love it.
Yeah.
But
And-
there are.
But as tasting, though, that's really interesting. The thought that came to my mind was when I used to teach news writing in newsrooms for years and years and years, I would always tell the young writers, I want to hear you talking out loud as you're writing, because you're writing a script that is going to come out of someone's mouth on the air.
Truly. Yeah.
And if you're not talking out loud as you're writing, you have no idea if that word sounds good next to that word. You have no idea if it sounds good together, the flow, and just if it hits the ear okay. And it just sounds like with cooking, it's the same thing. That tasting as you go, you're constantly evaluating how the food's changing and how it's all coming together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's composing a dish is like the level of chef, right? Like you go on as a line cook, pantry cook, fry cook, whatever. They're teaching you how to do hamburgers and French fries all day long. It doesn't matter what station it is or what you're cooking, as long as you have the heart to say, I'm making a good cheeseburger. I'm making really good French fries, right? But once you get to the level of actually composing a dish, which all my young cooks, always come to, I got an idea for a dish. It's like, oh, you got an idea, huh? Yeah. Are you really good at your station yet? Like, can I walk up and check your station and not find anything wrong with it? 'Cause we'll talk about composing a dish when you do that, So, but yeah, I think that part of it, that's the level that all the cooks should be aspiring to get to, but they try to go too fast.
Yeah.
They try to move up. I did the same thing. I tried to become a sous chef so fast. I was like, I want to be a sous chef, And I remember one time my chef pulled me aside because I had 2 babies. I was taking care of 2 babies and working full time. And so I couldn't really put in extra time after work. Couldn't stay late. I had to be home to get the baby, blah, blah. And I remember him pulling me aside and saying, listen, man, you can't go for this job until you can go for this job. Like you have too many restrictions right now. Like talk to me when you don't,
Yeah.
And he was right.
Yeah.
And then
When I have somebody over for dinner, say 2 more people, so I'm cooking dinner for 4, Chef, I get so stressed out. It's like, because this got done before this did, and I'm trying to juggle all this stuff. What's your advice? I'd love to just pick your brain. For those of us who aren't professional cooks or chefs, how do we manage everything so it comes out? And how do we take maybe the stress out of it? And sometimes you try a new recipe and it didn't quite work out. Demystify, if you would,
well, I can
that
tell
process.
I can tell you right now that I even was challenged at that for my family when I was first, when the kids were barely kindergartners, when Savannah was about to go to kindergarten, is about when, I started really cooking at home and making big meals. And my wife would be like, it's great, but this one's cold. And this waited too long for this. And she would be pretty critical of it. And so I had to learn how to do that, even being a chef, and it is a experience thing. So let's say you're doing steak and mashed potatoes and a sauce and a vegetable, right? So you just have to know what the timing is of each component, and then how to hold it, and then how to put it together on the table hot, right? So you take the steak, it's usually going to be the last thing the last thing cooked because you want it to be fresh.
Yeah.
Right. So you cook your steak, and then there's a resting period, right? So that you say you want to cook your steak medium rare, and you're cooking it to almost medium rare. Then you set it somewhere to rest warm, right near the
Do you
stove
cover
or
it
something.
when it's set like with foil or anything like that?
You can. I don't usually,
Mhm.
but you can. My girlfriend actually tries to do that. She said she got it from Martha Stewart. But yeah, you rest the steak, and then you go to the pot of mashed potatoes and turn it up and stir it and make sure it's starting to get hot. Then you put your sauce on. You turn the sauce on. Your mashed potatoes and your sauce are both getting hot. Your steak's resting. Then you take your fry pan that's getting super hot, and you throw your broccolini or whatever the vegetable is in there. You're sautéing that, and by the time the broccolini is done, your steak is rested, ready to slice, and your hot sauce warms your steak, or you can flash it real quick in the oven for a second.
Yeah.
It's like most people will just go to the mashed potatoes that are already ready,
Yeah.
have a lid on it, and then put it on the plate and be kind of, half warm, right? And the sauce will
been
be
there.
like congealed and not hot. And, me, I'd put a little butter in it and, whisk it in while it's getting hot and boily. So, yeah, it's just an experiential thing.
And it's kind of like golf. Those of us who are sort of committed to golf, you realize pretty soon when you take up the sport that if you have high expectations and you only golf once a month or twice a month, it's completely unrealistic.
Yeah, that's
Like
me.
if you want to, maybe we should golf sometime.
Yeah.
And you could, and then I'd love for you to show me how to cook a little bit better sometime. But we have this expectation that, if we cook maybe a great meal once every 3 months, how in the world are we going to be expert at it if we're almost never doing it, right?
100%.
I mean, so that it's, I guess it's like
It's
a
practice.
muscle memory
Yeah.
in the kitchen.
It's practice.
Wow.
I tell my guys all the time, I'm like, the reason why and I'm not trying to toot my horn, I'm a pretty successful chef, but I didn't just try to go to work. I bought books, I cooked at home, I tried recipes, I ate, slept, drank, cooking. I learned more from the joy of cooking than I did any chef that I worked for.
My mom has that.
Yeah, The
old
Joy of
cookbook.
Cooking is like the greatest book ever.
Like the cover's worn off. It's been used so many times.
I have a French book like that called what is it called? It's one of the La Race Gastronomique, and it's falling apart like my Bible. You know what I mean? Like they say, if your Bible's in really great condition, you probably are not in great condition, right?
All right.
Same as your cookbook. If you're not reading that book and you're not trying things out of that book and you don't understand what French terminology is and you're in this business, you need to get out of it.
Yeah.
Go do something else. Go be a painter.
What's one ingredient that you cannot live without? What's your go-to ingredient?
Oh, it's really hard. Butter.
Yeah.
Butter is the one.
And do you cook with salted or unsalted?
I always use unsalted. I don't like to use table salt in any way.
Huh.
Like, I stay away from all of that. At home, I use a salt called Redmond sea salt. It's very, very healthy sea salt with all the minerals. It's very, very good, and it's not so salty. It's very forgiving. Here we use a sea salt and a kosher salt. But yeah, butter is the one.
Yeah.
If you want to add flavor to anything, salt is obviously number one. But how do you eat a potato without butter? How do you eat corn without butter? How do you eat like fish without butter? I don't. I squeeze a lemon on a piece of fish, I can do it. But man, I want a butter sauce.
Yeah.
You know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit, Chef, about the food scene in Seattle. I mean, I remember way back in the day when Tom Douglas's, Seattle Kitchen Cookbook came out, and
I had it.
yeah, I still got it, and he was really that celebrity chef that put the Northwest on the map, and all the news programs nationally, the morning shows and stuff.
Yeah.
What's defined the Seattle food scene over the years, and what excites you about where the food scene is today?
I think the reason why I moved here was because of the food, the scene, the farming, the sea, the seafood, everything that comes from the Pacific Northwest is the best. The best cherries in the world. Don't tell a Michigan guy that, but the best cherries in the world, the best tomatoes, like the tomatoes that come from northern Seattle area, are some of the best in the world. The apples, right? Like we have 1 million types of apples that grow here. It's crazy. So the farm to table sort of evolution, I think, if it didn't start here, it should have. You know what I mean? Like, there's almost the Hudson Valley is one that's amazing. Here is amazing. Southern California is amazing, but I mean, there's no like greater, I want to say, concentration of sources than here, right?
And I think you touched on it earlier when you talked about the confluence of things that you look here at. We get fish and seafood out of the water just over the mountains. We've got amazing orchards and
the rivers,
grapes and wines and all that kind of stuff. So what's the hot trend in Seattle now, or is there one?
I think that the Asian influence is a big one. I primarily worked in mostly Italian and Japanese restaurants coming up. I worked in a few French restaurants. It wasn't my favorite cuisine, but probably because it was the hardest. French cuisine is still the hardest. It's nothing more challenging than like I even looked at a job offer, sort of a job offer, like feeling it out for Daniel Boulud in Miami, and I was like, do I really want to work for Daniel? Like, I don't know. It's a tough. I had a lot of friends, and even one of my chefs that I worked for him at Daniel in New York City, and he was like, it was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. And when I worked at Guy, which I worked at Guy Savoy in Caesar's Palace, this is one of the hardest jobs. I actually got thrown out of that job. I got pack your knives and go. I was like, yeah, you're not good enough for here.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's how hard it is. But it's Michelin star, just excellence all the time, like no mistakes. You can't make a mistake.
Wow.
And it's
high stakes.
It's hard, yeah. And that was like kind of job where I prayed for my car to the job, like, please don't let anything happen to me. Please don't let but something did anyway. But I learned more from failing at that than anything I've succeeded at.
Yeah. What are some of the lessons that some of the great chefs taught you as you were coming up?
I think one of my biggest influences is Chef Stephen Colt. I worked for him at Corso Cucina at the Wynn, and he wasn't only a really good cook, he was a really good businessman. And he ran a restaurant in Santa Monica, I'll say close to Santa Monica on Melrose, called Spartina for 10 successful years in California. And that's unheard of for a lot of these celebrity chefs who try to open one here, open one there. You even look at like Michael Mina, who tries to open a restaurant here on 3rd or 4th, it was called Bourbon Steak. And before that, there was another one he tried. And it's a hard market, and especially in California or Seattle. Those are the two worst because of the taxes and the minimum wage and yada, yada. But he did it, and he did it successfully. And he used to sit me down once in a while and ask me questions. Where are you going? Where do you think you are? And he was like, you have to put time in this. If you want to do this, it's like you want that family work-life balance, but you also have to kind of sacrifice in order to get where you want to be. He's like, I want to see you as a $90,000 a year chef, not a, $22, $23 an hour. I can't remember what I was making at the Wynn, but, and that really made me understand, that I had to, and from then on, and my ex-wife was very upset. I started working 16, 17, 18 hours a day and putting in all the time and hardly ever seeing my family. And it was kind of rough, but, they all understand now. They didn't then, but they do now. My girls are all grown and they've all had to go to college and, work in college and, work their asses off, and they had to do it too. And so they understand now, but, that was probably the best lesson I ever had was that. It was like, you got to make a choice to either do this and go for it all the way, or get a job where you get off at 3:00 and go home and make dinner for your family.
Yeah, it's a choice.
Yeah.
Is that the best advice you'd give young people coming up in the food industry?
Most of the time, my advice is get out. just go to college, go do something with your life, you know.
Yeah.
Like I have a plumber.
I tell people about that in the news industry, and one of my sons is a journalism major in college now.
Yeah.
So, but there are some good things about it too. So I mean,
it's if you really want to do it, it's like if you want to be a Navy SEAL, right? It sounds crazy, but if you want to be a Navy SEAL, you know you're going to put yourself through the most grueling, the hardest challenge that you're ever going to have in your freaking life, right? That's kind of this job without the pain. But I could say there's pain in it too. But so I'm like, if you really want to do this, like I have a guy downstairs who's really good. His name's Michael, and he's very, very new, very green, but you can tell he wants to be a chef, right? And so he's kind of that story coming to me like, I have an idea for a dish. It's like, all right, you have an idea? Let's slow it down, slow your roll. You know, what do you need for your station? You know what I mean? Oh yeah, I'm all out of this. Okay, let's do that first, right? Yeah. But I would say if you're going to do this job, you know, you want to put your time and energy into the thing that you want most. So that's what I would tell them.
Yeah, I read. You know, I lean into AI chatbots for some of my research, and one of the chatbots came back with. It said that you are known for having an extremely organized kitchen. Is that true?
I believe so. I did have the opportunity to work for one of the most organized, and just he's a crazy genius chef. Like his name's Sam Hazen. He was the executive chef of Tao Group for a while, and Tao Group was, and I think is still, the highest grossing restaurant in the world. So like they do over $70 million a year at one space. So it's just a money making machine, but he organized it. He did it. He opened it and did it. And I remember working with him, everything was a list. Everything was a guide. Everything was on paper. He had a to-do list for every day. He had a Monday list and then a Tuesday list. It was all completely different from yesterday. And so that's how I do it. I do it just like that. I make myself a Monday list. I make myself a Tuesday list. What do I got to do today? And I try to get it all done if I can. And if not, that ends up on the next day. His prep list, his recipes, he would use programs, you know, like Avero, or like now people are using Toast and things like that. Compete is another program. And he would use it like you're supposed to use it, you know? So, and this is the greatest one I tell people, which is, so Tao does about 1,500 covers a night for dinner, you know, over 1,500 people. And, you know, it's 30 plus cooks in the kitchen. It's a huge place. It takes 3 chefs to expedite it. But we had these fire sheets. And so it would be a Monday fire sheet for the butcher. And the butcher would butcher the meats and the fish. And then he would put the portions for the day on sheet trays on a rack, and then they would sear and mark all the items, and then they would go next to the broiler, and then the chefs would just bring them up to temperature, rest them, slice them, and plate them. But I remember being like with 1 or 2 steaks, he'd have 2 fillets left over, he'd have 1 ribeye left over. It was so accurate, and he did it based on cover counts. So like if it was 1,300 covers to 1,400 covers, it'd be this many New Yorks. It was 1,400 to 1,500 to be this many New Yorks. And it was just so accurate. It was dead on balls accurate. And so that was the most organized I'd ever seen anything work. And that was the best lesson I learned at Tao.
Because at the end of the day, if you don't get the business end right,
that's right,
it's not going to last.
And no matter what anybody says, we still have to make money. There's no other reason. Like, you know, the people come to the tower for the view, and they come to the tower to do the little rooms and work in the working areas, and you know, it's better than renting a whole office. They have all those incentives to become a member here, but really, what are they coming for? They're coming to eat. They're coming for the food. Like the banquets, they're coming to eat. They're coming for the food. Yeah, you know, so we got to make a profit, and we have to do it well enough that people want it and want to come back.
Yeah. What are you most proud of, Chef, on the menu right now? What dish?
I really love the halibut. Whenever I put halibut on the menu, I try to make it about the halibut and simple, and you know, use the components of the season. On
Do you
the
ever do
plate.
like a miso with the halibut, or what's your favorite way to prepare the halibut?
I honestly, I only use like a miso and a miso marinated and glazed with like Chilean sea bass or black cod, which is very traditional Japanese. It's the best way to make black cod. A miso glazed black cod is still the greatest dish. Thank you, Nobu. And it always hits. It's like so simple and so easy. Like that's a dish that every home cook should learn because it's so forgiving. You can put a black cod or a Chilean sea bass with some miso on it in the oven and forget about it, and it'll still be good.
But on the menu here, you'd say the halibut is
The halibut is really good. My sous chef just put together the octopus on his own, which I really like. It's not my dish, but it came out fantastic. I'm super happy about it because it's his, and he's been with me for about 12 years, off and on working with me. We work really well together, and seeing him evolve into a really good composition chef is pretty exciting. And his octopus, I don't want to say it in front of anybody, but it's better than mine.
I love it.
Yeah, so I'm pretty proud of that.
Well, just about time to wrap up, Chef, but I'd love to know, are you still learning as a chef? Still,
Always.
Like what are some things that you've learned recently that I love the idea that when I've interviewed people over the years, everyone who's at the top of their game shares that same trait, that same commitment to, like, we're never there. We're just always learning.
Yeah, I believe one of my first executive chef job was a place called Silk Road in Las Vegas, and it was an opportunity for me to try to get a Michelin star and an award and a James Beard, and I really tried to go for it as hard as I possibly could, and I was impatient and loud and demanding and all the things that I hated about some of the jobs I had, and I turned into sort of that kind of person for a minute. And even my chef, my boss at the time, who was the F&B director of the Vidara, told me to relax, and I had seen him freak out. I'm like, you're telling me to relax? And he's like, you gotta relax on your guys a little bit. And I was like, yeah, you're right, I do. And that was 20 years ago. And now it's like, relax, man. It's just food. It's like, it's a mistake. We'll remake it. We'll move on. Don't worry. Like, the patience is one thing that I'm learning and seem to be gaining more every day in my old age. And learning to let go of things. I still, like, my GM will tell you that I'm a freak out all the time about something, but I do let go a lot more than people think. I let people make decisions, and I'm not so argumentative. I'm like, okay, that's fine, we can try it, let's try it. If that's what you want to try, let's try it. F it. So that's definitely something I've learned recently.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
On television, a lot of stuff is distorted in terms of industries and professions.
Sure.
And now we have this whole slew of reality cooking shows. Like, in the real kitchen, does it ever get close to that chaos? Or does it depend on the restaurant?
If you watch some of them, like, for instance, Hell's Kitchen, it's a show. It's a show. Show that, you want to see Ramsay freak out. But if you watch them, they are still doing a service, right? They're still firing scallops and bringing them to the pass, and they're still firing the risotto and bringing it to the pass, and the pass gets put together, and the chef sends it out. And that is pretty much how a brigade works. So it's pretty realistic when it comes to a traditional brigade kitchen.
Yeah.
And then if you watch a show like Top Chef, where you see them, like, Restaurant Wars is a great one. They put together a restaurant in 2 days and then serve people, and you see them, like, figuring out how to expedite and figuring out how to get these two dishes out, and how it comes all together, and then they get judged on their performance, and you're like, that's exactly like a real service. So the only problem is you don't put together a restaurant in 8 hours.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge, and this other stuff is difficult. Like, you see, there was an episode where Michael Vittaggio had to cook on a sofa with a hot plate or whatever, and put together a dish, and he actually won that challenge, I think. And you're like, how the hell? I would quit. I'd walk out. I wouldn't do this. This is crazy. But a lot of it is just the theater, of course, because they want people to, like, see the drama.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Chef, this has been fun. Anything that I didn't touch on that you want to? I'm sure we'll have you back. It'd be kind of fun to do like a cooking class on one of these episodes where you took us through how to prepare a dish.
Sure, I can do that. That'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else though before we wrap up?
No, I think we covered it a lot. No,
Well,
no worries.
I love the food. Now that I'm a member, I get to experience it a lot more often. Chef Thomas Cullen, thanks a lot for all you
Awesome.
do. Yeah.
Thank you. My
Okay.
pleasure.
Take care.